Okay, boys and girls, we're going to talk about the Silver Fangs today. If you're going to play a Silver Fang, you're going to make a Silver Fang, you need to understand a lot of things about the Silver Fangs. They follow Falcon. He was one of the most staunch and upright of the honor totems. There is no gray area to Falcon. It's either honorable or it's dishonorable. And he supports the Silver Fangs as the rightful rulers and the upholders of honor and tradition. Now you got to understand exactly how the Silver Fangs believe the setup should be. To them, at the top of the rank, there's a king. Underneath the king are lords and ladies. Okay, underneath the lords and ladies is a steward for each lord and lady. The steward is kind of like a worm foe. They coordinate packs that are underneath them. Then you've got the heroes. Heroes don't always, they fall under the king, but they can fall under individual lords and ladies as, like, say, pack leaders and such. Some of them, though, are kind of like free agents. And then you have your heirs. Again, heirs can fall into various roles, but they're heirs to the king's throne when he drops, dies, vanishes, whatever it may be. They believe in the staunch royalistic attitude to ruling, so that kind of sets the tone for everything that comes. Now, one of the most important things about playing a Silver Fang is going to end up being your house. When choosing your house, you look partially at the heritage. You're going to probably want to look at the philosophy. The most powerful house at the moment, most prevalent, is House Wormfoe. Originally, they came from like Spain, France, Holland, and such. But they were so expansionistic because they didn't come into being until after the Inquisition, or during the Inquisition, actually. They even took some of the cairns from Osterhal when they had their troubles. But then when everybody started to shut the doors on them because they realized what an expansionistic threat they were, the New World opened up. And House Wormfoe was one of the main ones who went over there and exploited that. And hence, House Wormfoe is very powerful throughout the U.S. And I guess it makes sense that they've taken Eagle as their totem. So each house has its own totem underneath Falcon. Falcon's on top, and then they have their own. I can't call it a mascot, but it's their house totem. They revere that, second only to Falcon. And they have their own king, King Jonas Albrecht, who's based up in the New England area. No decent heirs come to mind at that point. Next most powerful is going to be Clan Crescent Moon. And yes, I said clan rather than house. Why? Because they've been around for so long, they hold to an older tradition. They were the top house up until the point where the Red Curtain fell on Russia. And the hag, Baba Yaga, basically hurt them and held them down. And they kind of fell out of it. They lost their passion. They were kind of in their own form of Pirano for a while. Now the curtain's been lifted. They've been regaining some of their prominence, but not fully. Now, as I said, they're mainly from Russia. They have the oldest and probably the biggest Silver Fang cairn around that's there. Now, they follow Buzzard. May not sound like a very honorable totem, but it is. And you have to actually understand how it works for them. But that's something that doesn't need to be covered in this video. Their queen, and they have a queen rather than a king, is Queen Tamara Tavarovich. And the Tavarovich family has many heirs. Okay, then you get to the House of the Gleaming Eye. They used to be based in functionally Northern Europe before it was Northern Europe, which was like France, Germany, the Scandinavias, and so Scandinavian countries and so on. When Osterhal, which I'll be discussing in a moment, had their problems, Gleaming Eye was the one who exploited it. They used to have one individual cairn in England that they shared with House Osterhal. When House Osterhal had their problems, Gleaming Eye was one of the main ones who snatched up a bunch of their cairns. And as such, there is a feud there. The Gleaming Eye does not like Osterhal and vice versa. Their leader is King Calvin de Provence, and he rules from Belgium. And their totem spirit is Hawk. It's just generic hawk, which means any other types of hawk will probably fall under it, like red-tailed hawk and so on, which is indigenous to my game's area. Then you got House Osterhal. Now, they originally were from England. Now, they've lost a lot of power, and their queen, Queen Mary, she's actually on the run. Nobody's quite sure where she's at because of the allegations that way back in the day, the English orgy cult and such, they believed they were sacrificing kinfolk to an entity called Red Jack. And the scandal basically it's all but taken down that house. There are still members of Osterhall out there, but they're always looked at with a wary eye. They get prejudiced against quite a bit. You name it, it's probably a bad thing for them. They're actually allied with Osprey. Then you've got the Unbreakable Hearth. This house is allied with Harrier. They're kind of spread out. They came from like France, Spain, Switzerland, Hungary, and so on. They don't have as much power there because they were the other main house that emigrated to America. Maybe not as much as Wernfo, but they're going to probably be the second most represented in the Americas. So they follow King Cyrus. He's not a very effective ruler, and everybody's actually looking to the heir when he dies or when he abdicates, whatever it may be. Margaret Standing Stone is their hopes and dreams at this point. Then you get to House of the Blood Red Crest. They follow Merlin. They're based out of India. Well, they've lost a lot of power. Their king, Palmerston Nayar, has been trying to pull the entire house out of Hirano. It's believed he's not in Hirano, but the majority of his house is, because in some way they've been cursed. Over the last 5 years, they have not given birth to a single Garou cub. And with the no cubs being born, no cubs being trained, no rites of passage to run and such, the tribe, that house has been falling into disrepair. You get the smallest of the existing houses, which is House Wiseheart. Now, they follow Peregrine Falcon. They originally were for Italy and Greece, but they lost most of their power there, and now the cairns they do control tend to be like in Turkey and the Middle East and such. Their king, King Tarki, is just trying to keep them above water, because they are the smallest of the tribes, and they might very well be following Blood Red Crest into extinction. Now, there are other houses. Okay, those are the 7 that exist. There were at least 5 other houses. It's believed there might have been 6, but houses like the Ice Pack, Conquering Claw, Winter Snow, Golden Sky, and even the unnamed one, which is some people call the Silver Spiral, they no longer exist. Those are dead houses. So we went from 12 or 13, depending on how you look at it, to 7. You can play one of those 7 houses, and that does dictate a lot of your stature within the Silver Fangs and a lot of your philosophy. After that, you got to actually look at the lodges, the Celestial Lodges. These are more like political camps in a way. You have the Lodge of the Sun. Lodge of the Sun, if you remember that, you're mainly concerned with the material world. You're into history, current affairs. You're going to be trying to coordinate between the tribes and the Sept, mediation a little bit. You're gonna, and you're all about tracking the enemy and so on in the material world. It's dominated by Hamids, plain and simple. Then you get the Lodge of the Moon. Okay, now they're dominated by Hamids as well, but most of the lupus of the tribe will end up there. They're concerned with the spirit world, mystic matters, and so on. They tend to focus on making sure the spirits are happy, keeping up morale of people, and always trying to garner Luna's favor. You're going to end up in one of those lodges, and that's going to dictate the role that you're expected to follow amongst the Silver Fang themselves. Now, camps. The Silver Fangs have camps. They just don't acknowledge them as camps. They'll never admit it. Now, the first 2, they're kind of acknowledged. I mean, there's Renewal. Okay, the Renewal camp. They believe they need to fix what is wrong with the Silver Fangs. They believe they're too tied up in tradition. It's not so much they look at the inbreeding factor of Silver Fangs, they look at almost like an inbreeding factor when it comes to the politics and the philosophy, and they're trying to fix that. The exact opposite is the Royalists. The Royalists believe that we have to go further into tradition to get things back to the way they should have been, the way Gaia and Luna meant them to be. Outside of them, you also have the Ivory Priesthood. It's all Theurges. They are keepers of the secret of death. What does that mean? Even canon doesn't say what that means. It's a secret, plain and simple. Queen Tamara Tavarovich is rumored to be one, as is, I believe, Tarki. It's like two of the kings are supposed to be in the Ivory Priesthood. They're looked at kind of funny by some, but like I said, you don't admit to it. Then you got the Grey Raptors. They're punishers, for lack of a better term. They'll never admit to being Grey Raptors, but they will actively and covertly go about their business trying to punish anybody who insults, demeans, ignores, or anything like that with the Silver Fang. Doesn't matter about the what house it is. If a Grey Raptor catches wind of it, they're going to go out of their way to do it. It's almost like having obsession for vengeance, and they'll transfer it to anybody within their family. The most secretive is the Masters of the Seal. If a Silver Fang is accused of or even hinted that he's a Master of the Seal, there's probably going to be a challenge coming. Blood will be spilled, if not death will ensue for somebody. Why? Because they're thieves. They think anybody in this one believes it's their duty to steal secrets from the spirits and from other tribes, because they believe the Silver Fangs have to have them. Now that covers your camps, your houses, and your lodges. So what else does it mean to be a Silver Fang? Well, first off, the Silver Fangs have a major flaw. They have some kind of disorder. Now, it can be a physical malformity, but 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a mental malformity, the equivalent of a derangement. This comes from the inbreeding that they've done, because back in the day, they stole as many kinfolk that were in royal succession lines as they possibly can. The problem is they only started breeding with them. So you were starting to have it where, we're breeding with our second cousin. Now it's our first cousin. Now it's a sister. Just like in the real world, that has an effect on them. And as such, every single one of them has something wrong with them. They're touched in the head in some way. Anybody who plays Vampire, they're kind of like the Malkavians of the Guru world. But I think Silver Fangs are done better than Malkavians tend to be, because some people make Malkavians silly. Ain't nothing worse than seeing a Malkavian running around in footy pajamas with pigtails and a teddy bear. You see a Silver Fang doing that, they're going to get killed. I'd love to see Evelyn Hastings in that get-up, just so she can get killed. It'd be good. Okay, that was just a personal note. There's always going to be something wrong with them. Now, they balance it out with their advantage, which is they've already got high purebreed. You're required to have a minimum of 3 levels of purebreed with the Silver Fang, and a lot of them are going to have more towards 4 and 5. They've also got something called the Silver Fang political retest. In any social challenge they can call, against another guru or somebody a guru or kinfolk who acknowledges their leadership, and even if they don't acknowledge it, as long as they recognize, they understand the guru way, they can bid this as a retest on any of those social challenges. Silver Fang retest, Silver Fang retest, Silver Fang retest. It gets annoying, but it shows that it's ingrained in the psyche of all guru that the Silver Fangs are the kings. They can rebel against it, they can hate it, but somewhere deep down they believe it. And the Silver Fangs use that, because the Silver Fangs claim they wrote the litany. They say they were touched by Falcon, or they were touched by Luna, or such, but in the end they wrote it. And you can see some of the stuff in there that a lot of people claim it's tailored towards them, such as, obey those of higher station. Why? Because there's nobody higher than the Silver Fangs, at least from their eyes. Okay, everything else is made pretty standard. They're already going to have their purebreed. A lot of times they'll have ancestors. A lot of their abilities will be towards martial type stuff. Leadership is essential. A lot of etiquette, lore, history. A lot of it just depends on what house you're from. It's how you set up your character. What is the formula that you use, and that kind of determines what your ladder looks like. So, how does that translate? Overall, you're going to make the character, and you're going to start to play them. Now, first, you're going to walk in with a Silver Fang, people are going to look at you kind of funny. They're going to look at me in one of two things. Either you're going to be a major political threat early on, or you're going to be a lost cause. Lost causes tend to get relegated to the role of jester, whether they realize it or not. Major political threats are just that. Now, that usually translates over to a lot of people sit there and say, okay, the Shadow Lords are the biggest threat there are out there to the Silver Fangs. In some ways, that's true. But the Shadow Lords acknowledge they're the Beta tribe. They acknowledge the Silver Fangs are the kings. And they follow certain dictums of honor that Silver Fangs can exploit. And they do it well. The Shadow Lords can be sneaky as hell, but the Silver Fangs have their own version of sneakiness, which actually comes cloaked, in the armor of honor. Their biggest threat probably comes from the Glasswalkers, because the Glasswalkers follow the American motif. When our country first came into being, we were a bi-party system. Everybody will say we are now, but we're not. But that's not for this. There were the Democrats, and there were the Federalists, the Royalists. That meant that they supported having the king, the King of England be over us. They supported kings. They didn't believe in rule by the people or rule by a committee or whatever it may be. They believed in the overall rule. Silver Fangs they cling to that. It's their power, it's their strength. It's the platform for which everything they are is built on. Glasswalkers are the exact opposite. Glasswalkers believe, in the Senate. They believe in every tribe has a vote, or every guru has a vote. They're progressive. They believe that the time for change is here, and that that everything needs to be broken down, and it has to mirror the human society to be made successful. That doesn't sit well with the Silver Fang, and that clash has been growing, and it's getting worse, and it's getting worse. There might even come a point where it's going to split the nation because a war will ensue. Be fun to see, but we'll see where it gets in each chronicle. I mean, for my game, it'd be interesting to see. Other games might not want to see it. They might just go, screw it. It's not something that interests me. So when you're playing a Silver Fang, you got to take all these things into consideration, and you got to play it out. You always got to look at what your negative is. What's that derangement, and focus your character around that. Somebody who is very attentive and has a bit of empathy should be able to, and I'm talking to the player, not the characters, they should be able to figure out at some point exactly what derangement you're playing. It should maybe not easy for them to do. It shouldn't be something that just glares at them like a friggin', a 300-pound fucking bell that's being rung. It should be subtle, and it should be something that they have to get close enough to you and have to see you in action enough to go, oh, I get it now. I see what's wrong with this person. Okay, how can I exploit it? Or how do I deal with it? You focus around that, and then you got to just kind of put some pomposity in there. You got to put that air of, I'm the leader, or I'm going to be the leader. It's my destiny. I'm better than you. And a lot of Silver Fangs will come down to the fact of, I'm going to do it. I don't necessarily want to be the leader, but how the hell am I going to trust any of these idiots? There's nobody else better suited for it. If I want to get it done, I got to do it myself. Silver Fangs have that mentality. So, hopefully this has helped. Hopefully it'll give some people, reasons to play Silver Fang, because I don't see near enough of them sometimes. And it's one of my favorite tribes. I love playing them when I get the chance. So, I think that about covers what I got to deal with there. So, hopefully you get a kick out of it, and leave me any comments, say what you want to say. Next up, the Octana. Yeah, I'm going to go the Octana. I'll do Octana 1 to go, and then I'll probably go back and do Stargazer, because they're rare and unusual. Later.